Pastor Weston here with Grace Point Community Church. Good morning and welcome to our daily devotional this week, Peace, Not Panic. I'd also like to encourage you to tune in for our 2 p.m. Discussion. We're going to be talking about this passage, any other questions that you have. We're talking about what does it mean to have peace through a relationship with Jesus, even during a global pandemic. Our passage today is from Isaiah chapter 9, verses 1 through 7. Nevertheless, that time of darkness and despair will not go on forever. The land of Zebulun and Naphtali will be humbled, but there will be a time in the future when Galilee of the Gentiles, which lies along the road that runs between the Jordan and the sea, will be filled with glory. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. For those who live in a land of deep darkness, a light will shine. You will enlarge the nation of Israel, and its people will rejoice. They will rejoice before you as people rejoice at harvest, and like warriors dividing the plunder. For you will break the yoke of their slavery, and lift the heavy burden from their shoulders. You will break the oppressor's rod, just as you did when you destroyed the army of Midian. The boots of the warrior and the uniforms blood-stained by war will all be burned. They will be fuel for the fire. For a child is born to us, a son is given to us. The government will rest on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. His government and its peace will never end. He will rule with fairness and justice from the throne of his ancestor David for all eternity. The passionate commitment of the Lord of Heaven's armies will make this happen. What a powerful passage. What an encouraging passage. This was a prophecy that was delivered to the people of Israel during a time of upheaval, a time of uncertainty, a time when they didn't know what their future would hold. Just that it wouldn't be the future that they had always planned on. They were preparing for the natural consequences of their disobedience to God. And even in that time, God wanted to give them hope for the future, encouragement for what lies ahead, that even though things were going to get difficult, He would send someone to rescue them, a Messiah. I remember when I was 5 in kindergarten, my grandma took me out to California to visit my cousins. And coming from the middle of the country where, it's cold during the winter and there's no beaches or anything like that, we got out there, and one of the things that just blew my mind was that almost every other house, it seemed, had a swimming pool in the backyard. And my cousins didn't have a swimming pool, but their neighbors did, and they invited us over to use their pool, and I thought that was awesome. And not only that, but they had this slide beside the pool so you could slide down the slide and splash into the water. I'd never seen anything like it. And so, but I wasn't a strong swimmer. And so I was splashing in the shallow end. And the thing about pools is, the water level is all the same on the top. You can't tell just from looking on the top, especially as a 5-year-old, what is underneath the surface, how much deeper it really is. And so as I watched my cousins having fun, going down the slide over and over again, I said, I could totally do that. So I got out of the shallow end, and I walked over to the slide, and I went down the slide. And almost as soon as I hit the water and realized that there was nothing under my feet, I freaked out, and I forgot entirely everything that I knew about swimming. And I just started flailing my arms, and I was terrified. And my aunt, who wasn't swimming that day, just reading a book beside the pool, she didn't bring her bathing suit or anything. She didn't think twice. She dropped her book and she jumped into the water and she pulled me out. She rescued me, and I was safe. And I didn't go down the slide again because that was just terrifying. But I'd been saved, and that's what Messiah means. It means Savior, somebody who is coming to rescue you. And in this case, and throughout the Old Testament, We actually hear about a lot of people who act as a Messiah, someone who is providing temporary relief, temporary rescue for God's people. But that's not what Isaiah is talking about here. He's prophesying about the Messiah. After this point, after this person comes and rescues the Jewish people, and actually we're looking at all the people of the world here in this passage, there's not going to be a need for people to be rescued anymore. This is an opportunity for a final salvation, something that can't be undone even through our disobedience. And so that's super powerful. I've got two main ideas from this passage that I think are going to help us in our search for peace in a relationship with Jesus this week. So first, God delights in working in our weakness. We see that in the choice of province where he starts in Galilee of the Gentiles. It's a place that's not known for much in Israel, and you hear that in the New Testament too. Just the disrepute of Galilee, that it's kind of a place where nobody comes from. It's not a place of much account. We also see that in the brokenness of the nation of Judah, in this case, of the Jewish people. God doesn't help people who think they've got it all figured out. He helps us when we're honest about our brokenness. When we're honest about our sinful nature. Sin is when we make mistakes, when we do things that separate us from God. Just like the Jewish people had disobeyed God, and that was resulting in all of these crises for them. The same is true with us. We've done things that separate us from God, and when we're willing to recognize that and ask for His help, well, then that brings us to the second and the really big point out of this passage that I think is important. The thing about prophecy is it always reminds us that God has a plan. And really in the Bible, prophecy is always talking about God's plan to rescue us, to make things right again. And so as we go through this time, Isaiah is a great reminder that God has a plan for us, even in our brokenness, and perhaps even when we're most broken, when we're most ready to admit that we need help. That's when God can do His best work in our lives. Because Jesus came so that we could be reconciled to God. And we see that right here in this passage. It's not just about rescuing the Jewish people here as a nation, but it's also about bringing that light to a people in darkness. Jesus is that light. He is that opportunity for us to be restored to a right relationship with God. And so I'm really looking forward to the discussion today at 2 p.m. If you have questions about that, about what it looks like to be restored to a right relationship with God, I want to encourage you to tune in. The link is below. We also have a telephone number that you can use. 2 p.m. Mountain Time. Looking forward to talking with you. Thanks for your time, and God bless.